everyone, welcome to the Quah. I'm Sam.
And I'm David, and we are your co-hosts for today's episode of the Quah.
Welcome back to the show created by youth on the Issaquah Youth Advisory Board, or IAB, to discuss issues that impact teens in our community.
This month's episode addresses school lockdowns, a topic of significant discussion that's been recently brought to the forefront in news.
We also take a look at State of Mind, the annual behavioral health conference planned by youth on IAB.
It's a very successful event, and we couldn't have done it without the generous support and partnership from the Issaquah Schools Foundation and Swedish Hospital.
State of Mind would not have been possible without our amazing speakers, volunteers, and attendees, with their enthusiasm and willingness to come together as a community and engage in insightful discussions.
Here are a few highlights from the day of the event.
State of Mind is basically what we like to call like a youth mental health conference, where basically we just get a bunch of really cool speakers to come and talk to students and parents about like problems that are facing the youth of Issaquah and like our country today. The jewel epidemic, like domestic violence in a relationship, stress, how to manage it, how to be a better leader, self-care, and like how like a 4.0 doesn't define you, and just a lot of things that are facing like people in our community today.
Well, State of Mind, I think, is a super cool event because it's all run by students, and the students have addressed problems that they see in their student community, and then built a event around that.
This event is designed for both students and parents. We have breakout sessions for students and then separate breakout sessions for parents, so they can hear how to like deal with these things from like two different points of views, and like the talks are more tailored to the group that they're being spoken to.
The truth is that all of our students in the Issaquah School District report hearing about it, so you're not introducing the idea of stress or anxiety or substance use. It's all a part of their life, and you can be the conduit for that information as a parent.
A really big goal for me personally would be like just so parents know how to deal with like the stress that their kids are facing in school and like the substance abuse issues, and just so kids themselves even are better equipped to deal with matters that they're facing in school and in their everyday lives.
A successful state of mind would be to have more tools in your toolbox to prevent the crisis. If it's substance abuse, if it's anxiety, if it's stress, if it's managing a lot of schoolwork. And then for parents to be able to address those, and really be able to talk to your kids about these issues before it starts.
Thank you to everyone who came out, and I hope you learned something, and I hope you are positively impacted by what we put on for you.
David, I'm so glad that everyone who attended had such a great time and learned so much.
I know. I'm so proud of all the work that we put in as a board, and I can't wait to see what YAB does next year to make it even better.
Every episode, we include a teen discussion called Izzy Teen Talks, in which we talk about pressures and issues that youth in our community are facing today.
In this segment, we will talk about school lockdowns, an issue that has been affecting students not only across the nation, but in our very community.
There was a time where earthquake and fire drills were the norm, but with at least 16 lockdowns happening in the United States every day, lockdown drills are now a part of a student's everyday life.
Taking a closer look at this issue, we decided to sit down with teens in our local community to discuss how lockdowns are affecting school culture.
Hi everyone, welcome to our second Izzy Teen Talks. Today we're going to be talking about lockdowns and our experience with them throughout our entire school history. So first off, we're going to introduce ourselves.
I'm Morgan.
I'm Julia.
I'm Haley.
I'm Sam.
I'm David.
I'm Sierra.
I'm Brooke.
And I'm Monsi.
So just to start off, what was your first experience with lockdowns, whether it be a drill or a real one? What time?
The first lockdown I was ever in was in kindergarten, and I remember everybody going towards the little bathroom in the classroom because there was a little area that everyone would tuck underneath. And everyone just started laughing and giggling because we didn't know what was going on. It was maybe we had one drill before it, but it ended up being a bear on campus, so it wasn't a huge threat.
So how many of you guys have experienced your first drill as a kindergartner also? And also out of that, how many of you have experienced a real lockdown? So does anyone want to start off with their experience with a real lockdown?
So my first real lockdown was this is when I lived in California, and it was in third grade, I think. And there was an active shooter. He just gotten fired from his job, and he was angry about it. And he shot his boss and 2 other people at his workplace. And my sister's school went into lockdown, and then my mom came and picked me up from my elementary school, and they didn't really tell us at the elementary school or the middle schools what was really going on. And I think that kind of starts from a young age, because I remember when we had lockdowns in elementary school and such, we were kind of just given lollipops and just told to be quiet, and they don't really tell you what's going on or what this actually means. And
Very recently at our high school, the high school that some of us go to, we experienced a real lockdown that lasted for about 2.5 hours, and it was pretty scary. It was in response to a gun threat, and we had many authority figures come onto campus to inspect if everything was okay, and it turned out to be benign, but in the moment there were definitely a lot of people that were afraid, texting their parents and their friends, like if this is the last time I see you, I just want to let you know I love you. That was pretty, I think, impactful. But for me, I think at this point have kind of become a little numb to these lockdowns, because I definitely, it was uncomfortable, I think, but I wasn't afraid or fearful that I wouldn't see my family again.
Yeah, I feel the same way. And with that specific lockdown, it was my friends who found the threat, so I was filled in on exactly what was going on, but I know a lot of other people weren't. So I wasn't scared because it had a time, and once that time passed, I was okay, it's fine. But a lot of other people didn't know that, so I think that definitely helped. And also I've become kind of numb to these situations, because there's just so many, and even during drills still today, no one really does anything. We just turn our lights off and go on our phones. We don't think twice about it.
I was wondering, in light of recent school shootings, like Parkland shootings, and other ones where there was a time period this past year where it was just happening in fast progression, did anything change, especially if you had a recent lockdown, and how you viewed lockdowns?
Around that time was actually when the Issaquah High School lockdown happened. And that one was very shocking compared to a lot of the drills because, it happened. I was walking into school, and all of a sudden some people from the office came out, and they're turn around to go to the middle school. So I had to direct people towards the middle school, and it was very, very real because they didn't even want us going in the school, and it was just very I didn't really know how to deal with it, so I don't know. It felt numb too, but I was also in fear. It's very shocking.
How do you guys think the Issaquah School District handled these lockdown situations that we've been in? Do you feel that their response addressed kind of the worries and just how everyone was feeling at the time? Or do you feel that it was a little bit too formal or that it was handled well?
One of the things I remember from the Skyline lockdown that stood out to me was that the orchestra class was escorted out to the stadium to stay there, and they were talking about how everyone was going to have to go out to the stadium together, and I thought that was a pretty awful idea just because they're out in the open and they really have no protection. And so if you're trying to get all the school congregated in one area because someone was to conduct a school shooting, that's literally the perfect situation for that to occur. So when I heard from my teacher that they were considering evacuating everybody to the stadium, I was not happy about that because I just think that creates one massive target instead of in a school there's different classrooms and the doors are locked, so it would be harder for a school shooter to target the entire school at once.
Yeah, I think Skyline, I don't know, it was kind of disorganized how they handled it. Because some classrooms were told that we were going out to the field. Other ones, dogs searched only some classrooms for stuff. I don't know, it was very inconsistent in the way that different classrooms were handled. So I think that could have been done better, but it was also kind of a first for Skyline, or we don't have very much experience with it, so I understand that.
I think there was just a lack of communication overall because I felt like the students knew more. We knew more what was going on than the teachers because we had access to news outlets that were updating their news and just we were communicating with our friends. But my teacher was relying on us for additional information and updates. So I think more communication could definitely resolve that issue.
And I feel like if the school district did send out like formal emails about what was going on, that would have helped a lot, because I know that on certain social media platforms there was a lot of misinformation about what was going on at the different schools. And so when I was in the lockdown, I only found out that the threat was at a different school about an hour into the 2.5 hour lockdown. And I feel like if the school district had sent out an email before like the 2 hour mark, I believe it was, I would have been a bit more calm, and I think everyone else in my room would have felt a little bit better about what was going on, and they wouldn't have relied so much on Snapchat and what their friends were saying.
It felt really disorganized, and I was actually really disappointed that the high school didn't give us more information about what had happened in like an email after the event. It was very like vague and kind of unclear, and I just felt like it wasn't really the proper way to handle it. And especially because we didn't have too much of a conversation after, I felt like students kind of needed a little outlet to process this by like talking with their peers about the actual events instead of rumors.
Going off of that, the day after, how many of your teachers talked to you or processed the occurrence with you, or did you just go back to learning as usual?
Personally, every single one of our teachers talked to our class about it, and they were just talking about like what we'd have done in a future emergency, and just kind of asked us how we were feeling about it. So I think I spent like the majority of the next day talking about it, and I think it was good for us to like discuss it in like a safe place, and also just be aware for the future, like good places to hide in the classroom, or just being aware of like our surroundings in the future.
I think one thing that would be really good for the Issaquah School District to implement into just their whole system would be to have like a text line for students and parents, updating them on any like threats that are occurring, any events that could be harmful within the entire district. I know like some of the colleges I've visited have these things, and I think that is a great idea for the high school.
That sounds great. And a question I just want to ask you guys, is there have you guys seen a like permanent or lasting impact from having these lockdowns at your schools?
Personally for me, whenever I hear the door open, I definitely like turn to look, and like I definitely feel like a little more stressed about that, especially like the next day. We saw someone like looking in the window into our classroom, and it was just like Mr. Guy, which is like the dean of students, but it kind of scared us, and like everyone was like, who's that? And so I think it's put me a lot more on edge, and but I think it's a good thing because I'm a lot more aware of my surroundings, and just being aware if someone was to come in now, like what is like the closest exit, or like how do I leave, or like how would I react, because I think processing things is good, because you need to think about like if it happens in the future, like what am I going to do?
That's true. Yeah.
And then in my school, personally, I've seen there have been changes. I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but the doors have been locked for all of the doors except for the two main entrances are locked between classes. So I think that's really great that we're implementing that to make sure there's only 2 modes of entry. So now that we've talked about our own personal experiences with lockdowns, how do we feel this will affect kids in the future or future lockdowns?
So I feel like as lockdowns are becoming more relevant within like all the schools today, and they're more common than they used to be, that we're definitely gonna have to make a few changes to just the structure of it so it can be more efficient. But I don't think that would be something that would be taken away.
I definitely see our school security systems improving every time like one of these lockdowns occurs, and so I think that kids in the future will be even like better protected than we are now, because they'll find new and better ways to protect the school from other people.
I agree. I think we're just becoming more prepared. Like we're talking about it like this. We're becoming more educated with how to handle these situations. So I think in the future, like the threats could increase, but I think we'll also be more like protected and aware of how to deal with them.
Yeah, definitely they're sadly always going to be a part of the future, at least from our viewpoint now. So the advancements that we're making towards making our schools a safe place is really great.
Yeah, I think continuing to talk about it in our schools, although the downside it becomes a very numb topic to talk about, I think it is so important to educate students on how students can be prepared in certain situations, no matter what the situation is, and just continue to improve the communication systems that are in place with the students, with the faculty, and with the community, and with our parents as well.
And I think that teachers are becoming a lot more prepared for this because they're finding areas in their classrooms where students could hide, or they're figuring out what kind of system they could implement to help their students feel more safe in the classroom. And so I see in the future teachers becoming a lot more involved in this and sharing this information with their students, and hopefully that will put everyone at ease in the future.
I'm mostly just really glad to see, like, especially from you guys, that your teachers have actively tried to make discussions open about this and make sure that everyone is communicating about how they're feeling and what's going on in the events and how they're processing all of that. I think that's a really good step towards progress.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I also think that although these kind of threats are going to probably continue to happen, and it's good that we're trying to come up with mechanisms to deal with them, I think it'd also be helpful if we focused more on the actual root of the problem and preventing the threats in the first place. So hopefully people in the future would have to deal with this less, or hopefully not at all. And we could just focus more on mental health in high school, and not to get too political, but gun legislation. So these kind of threats are far less likely to actually occur, and we don't have to find ways to even deal with them in the first place.
So this has been a really insightful conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you next time on Izzy Teen Talks.
As you've heard from us today, lockdowns have become the new normal for today's teens and will continue to play an increasingly larger role in the future.
It is important for our community to come together to develop solutions to best address and prevent lockdowns from happening in the first place.
We want to thank all of you so much for tuning in to our second episode of The Quah.
In this edition of The Quah, we will leave you with some highlights of recent Issaquah Youth Advisory Board events that include the 4th Annual Issaquah Kids Triathlon and our new event, Dodgeball and Donuts, featuring our local police officers.
Have a great day.
And we'll see you back in the fall.